I can guarantee you Spider-Man is almost every single person's favorite superhero. And of course, as we know, Spider-Man has had 3 different versions of the same character, with 3 completely different actors and 3 completely different stories. Today we're going to be looking at all the Spider-Man movies, and I'm going to be condensing my opinions down into a tier list. Now, just like my last Call of Duty tier list, I'm saving my personal favorite for the top row, so you will not be seeing anything up there no matter how much I love these movies. So starting with Spider-Man 2002, I'm straight up putting this in awesome. Now personally, I think this movie gets a lot of hate and a lot of people consider it, well, campy and corny. And the truth is, yes, it is campy and corny, but also I think personally people forget that this was the 2002s, man. Nobody really wanted to see an emotional superhero movie like we do now. Nobody would have taken it that well back in these times, and this was the best way to sort of introduce a character like Spider-Man. Although yes, now Spider-Man gets taken a lot more seriously and we have a lot more backstory and personality to the character, you've got to remember back then Spider-Man was literally a guy who could shoot webs out of his wrists. These characters do not sound like they should be put in a serious light at all. So making the first movie more of this campy, corny comedy film that's for a lot of younger audiences to enjoy and a lot of older audiences to accompany them and enjoy it as well. Personally, I think this film was a great way to set off the entire Marvel universe. So regardless of your difference of opinions on this, I think we should be grateful that this film introduced a lot of the Spider-Man movies we see today. And that's why it's in awesome. Now the next one is Spider-Man 2 from 2004, and this one is also going in awesome. You can tell I love the Raimi movies. Now this movie is honestly beautiful, and I'm being completely honest with you. Like we said, the first film was very campy and corny, but this film took it to a completely new path. It was great to see how Spider-Man personally affects the character of Peter Parker. It causes problems in his family, it causes rifts with his friends, it messes with his studies, and it messes with his jobs. And that is one of the hardest truths of Spider-Man that I feel like a lot of the movies do not often tell. It is difficult being this character. You lose a lot by being this character, by bearing this responsibility. And the film was so beautifully told. The villain wasn't cheesy, it wasn't corny. Even in the end, the villain had a sort of awakening and realized the wrong he was doing. And the character of Dr. Octavius, before he ended up getting the arms, was a beautiful character as well. He was well spoken, he was intellectual, and the way he lectured Peter in how to sort his own life out, it was a really good way to tie these two characters together. Sam Raimi put out all the stops for this film, and it genuinely is one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. Now moving on to 2007 Spider-Man 3. Yeah, this is going to be a controversial one, but I'm gonna put it in solid. No, you know what? Let's just bring it to cool. Now I'll be real, man. When I was a kid, I didn't see the hate. I thought everyone loved it as much as I did. Now, of course, as I got older, I watched this film again, and it's still a banger. I don't know why everyone's crying. No, realistically, there was some story issues. I felt like it was telling too many stories at once. There was too much going on. It was very hard to focus on one villain when you've got 3 taking up the space, and especially when one of the villains has barely a decent motive to actually be a villain, and there was no point having him in it whatsoever. Venom felt like a very last-minute addition, and it did cause a lot of problems with Sandman and Harry, which were 2 very good characters that were having stories being told. Now, the next one is The Amazing Spider-Man 2012. And I'm going to put this in cool. Now I'm going to say something completely honest, and I feel like it might cause a lot of hate. Andrew Garfield never suited the role of Peter Parker. And I say Peter Parker, I don't say Spider-Man. Compared to Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield was a lot more quippy, he was a lot more arrogant, and he had a lot more of a personality to his Spider-Man character. Tobey Maguire was often either too quiet as Spider-Man or just very serious, so having a Spider-Man that's more of a comical version did really help his character a lot. But him as Peter Parker, I personally don't think he could have done that shy and intimate personality that Tobey Maguire had. He really couldn't fit that role of being the bullied guy. I just didn't see it, no matter how many times they tried to convey it. It really didn't work for me, him as Peter Parker, but him as Spider-Man was truly a perfect combination. And a lot of people hate this story, and a lot of people did hate it because, well, it marked the departure of Tobey Maguire, and I'm gonna say personally, yes, I felt the same way, but at the end of the day, Andrew Garfield came in and he gave the performance of his life, and it's noticeable in this film. Like, he's a very good actor, and I feel like the acting significantly improved. From a lot of what I remember, this film's romantic story, compared to the MJ and Peter story previously, it was really good. Like, Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield, they had a chemistry that just clicked instantly. And personally, I didn't see that same chemistry with Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. This romantic story in this movie trumps both the Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire story and the Zendeya and Tom Holland story. I'm just gonna say it straight up, this has to be one of the best Spider-Man love stories of all time. 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm sorry, everyone. Yeah, it'd be wrong for me to not say this was a literal failure. It was really all over the place, and it didn't feel like a Spider-Man movie, to be completely honest with you. There were some moments that made it a Spider-Man movie, of course, like the chasing through New York scene and obviously fighting the electric eel. What was his name? Electro. Electric eel, what the f. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember much of this film because it was so crammed with characters and information and plots that my child mind couldn't really comprehend it. So all I remember was Spider-Man kicking Electro's ass, and that was the end of it. I believe there was a part of this story that had Peter Parker's parents who created this spider for Peter to become Spider-Man, and I felt like that ruined the whole idea of Spider-Man. Like, the best thing about it was just it was a random kid who got these powers and he became this hero. So having it as something like he was destined to become Spider-Man, or they made him become Spider-Man, ruins that whole character feeling for me. I don't like it. Yeah, it felt like a James Bond movie more than it did a Spider-Man one. This film feels like it's cosplaying multiple different types of movies than it is being a Spider-Man movie. That's why I personally dislike it. But of course, I don't want to forget one of the best moments of this film, the death of Gwen Stacy. It was so beautifully done. It was so touching. Andrew Garfield gave her an amazing performance. It felt so heartbreaking to see because their love story was definitely one of the best, and to see it end like that so tragically definitely brought a tear to my eyes. So to be real with you, no matter what I think of this movie, the Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker love story truly was the best part of these films. So the next one is SpiderMan Homecoming, and I'm just going to completely put that in okay. Now, I know personally people want to see this as like the revival of Peter Parker. It was Spider-Man coming back. It was a new story. It was a new actor. I get that. But personally, I just didn't like this film at all, man. I really didn't. Many people mention this as a problem, and I personally feel it's a problem too. Spider-Man's reliance on Tony Stark ruined it for me. I didn't like the fact that this kid who was supposed to be this hero coming up on his own was now relying on the billionaire Tony Stark to make his equipment, to make his suit and everything. It felt kind of an insult to the character, to be real with you. It was fun. It was enjoyable. I can agree with that. But in terms of a Spider-Man movie, I didn't really like it. I didn't enjoy it. And to be completely honest with you, when it comes to it, this is one of my least favorite Spider-Man films. And it's one of the films that I never really want to watch again. It's hard to explain it. Like, the film was enjoyable. It had some comedic moments. It was pretty funny. But I didn't like it. Like, I didn't like the fact that Spider-Man was so overly reliant on Tony Stark, you know what I mean? Having the story of Spider-Man start out fresh from his own is always the best way to start a Spider-Man story, because I really like you having this superhero who's on his own and he comes to learning all these things. I feel like when you have him working with Tony Stark, a lot of the stuff that he should be doing on his own is pretty much already provided for him, and that's most of his character out the window. That's my personal issue with this movie. Was there any other issue? No, I personally think Marvel's budget increased a lot and the CGI was vastly better than Sony's. The actors in it, in this Spider-Man area, I can guarantee you there are no bad actors. They're all pretty well done, and they're also pretty well casted as well. I forgot to mention this, but a lot of the early Spider-Man films, you kind of have people who are casted as high schoolers who don't look like high schoolers. So I can really appreciate that they had multiple different actors in this that actually fit the roles, as well as having diverse characters with different ethnicities and different cultures. It's pretty good addition to a Spider-Man film because you have so many more avenues to look at. And yeah, he's not Harry Osborn, but Ned is a perfect addition to this Spider-Man trilogy. He definitely works alongside a Peter Parker that's more comical and has more humor in him. It definitely works, and they definitely work off each other pretty well. Their chemistry is pretty good. There is a love story in here, but it was kind of like useless. I didn't really think it was that important. It was Spider-Man chasing after a girl. It was basic high school stuff. So I think it was really good to have Spider-Man still be in high school and have him have these high school emotions and feelings. Because, you know, we've seen Spider-Man as a grown-up adult who's trying to maintain a career and be Spider-Man. We've seen him more as a college-esque student, you know, like Andrew Garfield. But we haven't seen him in high school, and this is the perfect chance to put him in there. Bravo, it's pretty good. And the next one is Venom. Venom. And the next one is Far From... Why the hell is it here 3 times, man? Anyways, Far From Home? Yeah, it's going down here. Oh god, I hate this movie, man. I'm sorry if this is one of your personally favorite movies. It's not mine. I don't like it at all. My first gripe with this movie is taking Spider-Man out of New York. Like, it didn't work for me, man. I didn't care at all the past couple of movies that Spider-Man was always in New York. It never bothered me. But having him in, like, Europe... This feels weird to me, man. Like, seeing Spider-Man swinging across the street in London is really weird as well. You know, like Spider-Man 2 and like the Amazing Spiderman, you could have taken some serious storylines into this. You could have had a more serious storyline, and instead we're just getting this really big joke. To be honest, Mysterio is rarely seen as the big threat that he should be, because in this movie he's treated like a joke. His entire story and plotline is just a joke. I really don't like that we've taken a really good villain, a very good villain that actually managed to cause the problems that exist in the next movie we're going to talk about, it's kind of hard to take him serious. Now, this film had some very good CGI segments, and I won't deny that, but CGI does not make a movie better. It also matters about the story, it matters about the characters, and this film really did not do it that well. I also didn't like how Aunt May was just so cool with him being Spider-Man. This is the same aunt that in the last film had a panic attack because Peter Parker was about 3 hours late. You can't have that same mentality, then be completely cool with the fact that your nephew is facing death every other day. It just straight up shocked me how they let that slide so quick. And of course, yet again, despite the fact that the brother is dead, he is still a major role in this film. Tony Stark is constantly mentioned, he's constantly brought up, his technology is present in the film. I really don't like this reliance on everything to do with Tony Stark, and that is one of my biggest gripes with these films. And the last one on the list, and the rightfully superior Spider-Man movie of all time, SpiderMan No Way Home. Take everything you loved about Tobey Maguire. Take everything you loved about Andrew Garfield. And take everything you loved about Tom Holland and put them all three in the film, and that's literally what they did, and that's why it's so good. Spider-Man No Way Home brings all three characters back. Everyone gets a piece of pie in this film, man. No Way Home brings everybody together to unite against the one enemy, the Sinister Six. That is just so fire, man. I can't even deny. I made that up. The Spider-Man character is one of the biggest divides in the Marvel community. People love Tobey Maguire and hate the other two, and people love the other two and hate the other two. You get what I'm getting at. This film said, nah, we ain't doing that, bro. And they brought all three of them, and they put all three of them in this movie. They brought references from the older film. They brought villains from the older film. They brought the suits from the older film. Bro, what can you hate about this movie? This movie is just a collective thank you from all three directors, all three actors, all three characters, to the entire people that watched them, and it just feels so good. I was a staunch Tobey Maguire fanboy, but when I saw this movie, I became peaceful. I believed in coexistence with the Andrew Garfield fanbase and the Tom Holland fanbase. This movie just did that, man. Zendeya's character, MJ, is so much better in this film. She's funny, she's quirky, she has more of a personality. She's not just stale and emotionless. Like, I really loved her character in this film. Like, she did it really well. Ned was already perfect, so I ain't gonna talk about him again. Flash Thompson was in this. I don't really care. They gave Electro a fade. I don't know why that's a point. They brought back the villains, and the thing that's more beautiful than bringing back the villains was having the heroes who previously defeated those villains come back and see them again. You don't realize how touching it was to see Doc Ock and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man meet each other again. It felt like a kick in the chest, man. Like, you don't get it. It's safe to say that this movie is just a collective fan service, and I don't care, I stand by it. It's a banger movie. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's tier list, and I'll see you guys soon.